discuss the quadratic formula. I'm sorry, the quadratic equations and how to solve them. This should be fun. We're gonna learn how to do every single form of quadratic process verbally and analytically. So, we gotta start off by actually knowing what a quadratic equation is. Okay. So, so, quadratic equation is simply an equation where the highest degree of x is 2. So, well, x is the variable. So the highest degree of the variable is 2. This simply means that the greatest exponent in the equation is definitely going to be 2. Can't be greater than. Okay. So there are 4 ways to solve quadratic equations. But before we get into that, we need to discuss how you go about figuring. I'm sorry. The first step to doing every single problem, which is changing everything to general form. General form is as follows: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are variables, and a is any real number other than 0. And B and C are just B and C are just real numbers. So every single problem, always try to get into general form because it will make it easier for you to do the problem. So there are 4 ways to solve a problem, to solve the quadratic equations. There's factoring, there is completing the square, there is extracting the square root, and then finally there is the quadratic formula. What is the square? Math is my favorite subject and not English. So extracting square. And then quadratic formula. Now out of these, factoring is my favorite, but you'll find that you need to know all 4 of these because factoring, completing the square and quadratic formula always work. So you need to know how to do those. Like, they will always work for any problem. If you're stuck on any problem, if you go right to those 2, they will always work. Now factoring and extracting the square, they just work sometimes. So even though factoring is my favorite, I know how to do the other 2, the other 3, because 2 out of those 3 always work. So you always want to do the one that always works if you're stuck. So, clear this right here. We're gonna start with factoring. Now, we need to define factoring verbally. So it is simply to simplify. Is when you simplify an equation by rewriting it as the product of one or two linear equations. It can be either one or two linear equations. Yeah, and then you simply set it equal to 0. Equations. Um, okay. Once you do that, you can go ahead and solve for x. It makes the problem really simple. So it's just simply breaking down the problem so it can be easier. You're dealing with smaller numbers, and um, yeah, it can be a whole lot easier. That's all it is. Um, so this definition, beautifully written right here, is a verbal way to look at factoring. Now we're going to look at it analytically. So let me clear my board. And here we go. We're going to do an example. So it's going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. So the way this works is to factor, you multiply the numbers a and c, which gives you a number, and you have to find two numbers that add to give you, that multiply to give you that number, but add to give you b. So in our example, 4 times 1 is 4, and it's equal to 4, so 2 plus 2 works. So that gives you x plus 2 times x plus 2, which equals 0. You simply separate the problems, even though they're the same problem, just separate them for the sake of the example. And you solve for x, so try to get x by itself. Since it's added, subtract both sides, x equals negative 2 for both. And now we're going to take it up a notch, like our wonderful math teacher says. We're going to do 5n squared plus 25n plus 10 equals 10n. Now, here, because it's not in standard form, you simplify. So you combine like terms, which gives you 5n squared plus 15 plus 10. Because you subtracted 10 from both sides, equal to 0. From here, you notice that you can divide a 5 out to make this problem a whole lot easier. So it becomes n squared plus 3n plus 2. Go back to the AC has to equal b. So 2 times 1 is 2, but add to give you 3. So n plus 2 times n plus 1 equals 0. You separate them and then solve for n. So n is going to be negative 2 and n is going to be negative 1. And that's your answer. Now, I'm going to give you a problem where you can try it. Just write the problem down. Don't do it yet. Just write the problem down and yeah. So, roll it down. Write the problem down. So, the problem is going to be 8y squared plus 72y plus 20. 8 equals 32 y minus 20. I don't know why I wrote n. I guess I was still caught up on the wonderful problem we just did. So that's not n, it's 32y because it's the same variable. So write this down and yeah, just write it down. Okay. Next we're gonna talk about extracting the square root. Okay. Next we're gonna talk about extracting the square root, and it can be called different things, but I just ignore it as extracting the square root. At this process is simple. You just isolate the variable, which I'm just gonna say is x for now, so x squared. And then you just take the square root of both sides. And that is literally it. Seems a little bit too complicated. But you simply isolate variable, take the square root, and that's it. Of both sides, yeah. Take square root of both sides. And that's gonna be it. So yeah. That's the verbal definition. Well, that's a verbal. I'm sorry. That's a verbal approach to extracting the square root. Now we're gonna after I finish writing, we're gonna go to an example. So the example is s squared plus 64 equals. So you isolate the variables. So you're gonna do x squared equals. Well, I'm sorry. This may not look like standard form because it's s squared plus 64, but it is standard form. It's just that the second term, which would be b, is 0. So you can just eliminate that. So it's going to be s squared plus 64 equals 0. So you simply move the 64 to the other side to isolate the variable, which gives you negative 64. You simply take the square root of both sides, and you're left with plus or minus 8i. This negative 1 is I, the square root of 64 is 8. We're going to take it up a notch. It's going to be, let's try this problem. 8n squared plus 108 equals 1283, 1,803. Subtract 108 from both sides to isolate, to help you in the problem of isolating the variable. That gives you 1175. You divide out 8 because you're still trying to get n squared by itself. That gives you n squared equals 1175 divided by 8. Take the square root of both sides. You get n equals positive or negative square root of 1175 over 8. Yay! Make sure you keep it in fraction form because you will get points deducted off if you put it in decimal form. And also, you may not be using a calculator, so it just makes life a whole lot easier. So just keep it like that. So we're gonna do a try it. Now try this problem. It's gonna be 12n squared minus 123 equals 1845. And solve this problem. Well, try it. So just write it down, really. Do it again until I get to the end. Okay. Now we're gonna move on to completing the square. I used to hate this method. I used to hate this method for some reason. I think it's because my teacher, my high school teacher, like she sucked at teaching this method, or she went over it too fast, so I just didn't really care. I didn't know it. Either way, here I am teaching it to you, wonderful math students. So, here we go. Completing the square. You need to remember to put it in standard form, but in this case, a has to equal 1, as I learned on my last test, because I knew the process, but I left a to be a variable higher than 1, and you can't do that in this problem, in this method. So just remember, you have to divide out everything by a. If it's another number, divide everything by a, even if it gives you a fraction for any other number. Divide everything by a. I cannot stress that enough. Divide everything by a. That'll be the difference between 6 points and 10 points on a problem, which could be the difference between an A and a B. Anyway, so process of completing the square. There are 4 steps. First one is it's horrible. So I'm erasing that. Everything else is horrible. But anyway, you have B, so it's gonna be B divided by 2. Then you square. So then you square, so it's gonna be B squared, B divided by 2 squared. Then you add. So you add B divided by 2 squared to both sides of your standard form. It's gonna be x squared plus bx plus b divided by 2 squared equals c is b divided by 2 squared. And forgot to tell you that you have to move c to the other side for this to work because b divided by 2 squared is replacing c in this instant. So move c first and then you start this process. Okay? Move c first, then start this process. Next step is factoring, so you just factor what you added on that side and should be good. Let's solve for x. So we're gonna move on. So I've heard our ASU Math 137 honors teacher, his name was Dr. Roster, came up with this device for remembering that process, which was hot sauce on anything fried. But she said specifically, do not plagiarize anything. And I don't know if she would consider this plagiarizing or not, so I'm just gonna say she would. So this is my way of remembering it. Hobo smile at food. When you're walking around, you see hobos and you give them food, they always smile. So hobos always smile at food. Alright? It's not catchy, it's not funny, it's probably not as good as hers, but it's mine. And I won't get a 0 on this assignment. So yay me. Okay. Um moving on. That's half, square, add, factor. Hobo smile at food. Now we're gonna try it. Um, there we go. So, hobo smile at food is again half, square, add, and then factor. And everything that I said before that, that's this part is the verbal. So this is verbal. When you do that, you get x. It's the verbal definition. Now, move on to I hope you're awake. Stay up. It's a long video, but you're learning. Stay up and look at it. Okay. We're gonna do this problem. A squared plus 12a minus 40 equals 0. The way this problem is gonna work. Like I said before, you move c. So since c is negative 40, you add it to both sides. That gives you a squared plus 12a equals 40. Started off in standard form. So now you do b divided by 2, which is the half. So you half it, you get 6. Then you square it, you get 36. Now you're going to add it. So hobos have smiled already. Now you're adding it, so add it to both sides. And now you're going to factor food. So when you factor, you get a plus 6 times a plus 6 because 36. Two numbers that multiply to give you 36, but add to give you 12 or 6. So a plus 6, a plus 6. That's gonna give equal 76. A plus 6 times a plus 6 is the same thing as a plus 6 squared, but I'm not gonna write it over because I don't have that space. So you take the square root of both sides, you're left with a plus 6 equals the square root of 76. Subtract 6 from both sides because your goal is to get 8 by itself, so your answer is going to be negative 6 plus or minus 76. Always remember plus and minus. And that's your answer. So, simple. Just hobo smile at food. Remember it. Hobo smile at food. Okay. So for the next problem, we will do, we're going to do k squared plus 10k plus 8 equals 0. So this problem, you're going to move, 8 to the other side, so it's going to become a negative 8. Then, right, negative 8, okay. Then you are going to hobos. Smile at food, so half of b is 5, squared is 25, so you're going to do k squared plus 10k. Add the 25 to both sides. And then when you factor that side, you get k plus 5 squared because 5 times 5 is 25. And then 5 plus 5 is 10. So k plus 5 squared equals 17. And we take the square root of both sides. And then square root of 17. Subtract 5 from both sides. That gives you k equals negative 5 plus or minus square root of 17. There you go. That's the answer. Okay, so this is the problem you're gonna try. You're gonna try, here it is. You're gonna try 4m squared plus 4m plus 42 equals, so write it down. Try to solve it yet, but write it down. And you'll do something with it. So next, the final way to do a problem. Oh yeah, by the way, completing the square, that one always works, so that's the one that always works. And this one always works too. Quadratic formula. Okay, so quadratic formula. This one always works too. And the best way I can put it into words, and this is the best way I can make this a verbal form. If a quadratic problem is in standard form, and you can always change quadratic problem to standard form. X can always be found. Always, 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 always. But no, always. But no, always. There's no but, always. It can always be found with the quadratic formula. Now, that's the best way I can think of to put that in a verbal form, because it's a formula. With the quadratic formula, which is still part of the verbal. I'm gonna sing it. Okay. Negative b plus or minus square root plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac b squared minus 4ac, and if my hand catches up, all over 2a, all over 2a. It sounds childish, but it actually works, because every time I do this, like if I forget a part, I promise you this always works. So remember that song. If you need me to repeat it, come up to me and I'll just sing to you my wonderful voice. So now we're gonna try a problem. X squared plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. Now, this is the best way to do this is just to figure out what your A, B, or C is. So all you have to do is plug it into the formula, the best way. So, negative b, which is 8, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2. Plugged it in to the formula that I just sang. You're going to have negative 8 plus or minus 64 minus 48, which is 16. And you're left with negative 8 plus or minus square root of 16 is 4 all over 2. Do not leave your problem like this, because you can simplify it. And even though I simplified it, I didn't have to. With this, you have to actually solve out the problem, because you have actual numbers. So you would do negative 4 plus 2 and then negative 4 minus 2. solve for those and give the numbers. Do not leave it as -4 plus or -2 because you can solve that. That's not something with an I or anything. You can go the further step of solving that. So that's your answer. -2 and -6. Yay! Make sure you just go as far as you can. Remember that. As long as you remember that, go as far as you can. And if you see you can't do any more with the problem, then that is your final answer. But if you can do more with the problem, do it because points will be taken off if you don't. We're gonna take it up a notch. So we're gonna do 4x squared plus 20x plus 33. Wake up, anyone who's sleeping in class or at home. Plus 33 equals 0. A equals 4, B equals 20, and C equals 0. You didn't have to pay to wake up. Anyway, -b, plus or minus square, plus or minus square. You get the gist. Even though my wonderful voice is awesome. You plug those numbers in, and you're left with -20 plus or minus 8 on the bottom, 8. That's gonna be 400 minus, that's me, the break is me using the calculator. 400 minus, I believe it is 528, which is gonna give you -128. Now, here, I go a little bit fast, so listen. I just simplified the problem out, because -128 could be divided by 16, which would be 8, which could further be divided by 4. So 16 times 4 times 2 is 128. So I just simplified it. I told you go as far as you can. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, which is where this 8 comes from. -2 has a -1 in it. The square root of -I, which is why you see an 8i. Then I simplify it. I divide it all by 4 because it's all divisible by 4 except for the square root of 2. So, you are left with -5 plus or minus 2i squared root of 2 all over 2. If you need to go back and, look at that one more time, that's fine because it kind of is a little confusing. But this is the simplifying process. Know how to simplify. I promise you, know how to simplify because it will help you, gain 4 points on that test. So, yeah, know how to simplify. And go back as much as you can on that problem if you need to know how to simplify how I went through that. But it may have been okay. 7x squared plus 20x plus 43 equals 0. Try this problem. We'll just write it down actually. Don't try it. Write it down. 7x squared plus 20x plus 43. Alright, this is what I want you guys to do. If you're at home, and just try the problem by yourself, because you can't do the next step because you need someone there with you. But when you go to your little study group, or when you go to class, or if you have that one thing who you study with or whatever, just find someone you can do this part with because it will behoove you to do this problem. Consult with a partner. If this is in class, if you're in class and you're watching this, consult with a partner. Robert, I know I'm not there, but you'll be fine. Consult with a partner. Try to see if your answers are the same, and they are awesome. But even if they are, you still need to explain the process to each other. Explain the process of how you got through every single process to that person, because you guys may have different processes. It may help you guys. One may understand why you did this, one may understand why you didn't, and try to correct one another. So if someone got it wrong, just let them know how they did it. Let them know how you did it, how you went about it, and how it. You got the awesome writing. Thank you very much for watching this and not falling asleep. Now let's clap for me, because all those problems were original. Every single problem I came up with myself. Let's just clap for me for taking the time to do this. Even if you don't want to, please clap for me to make me feel so better. So much better to spend 30 minutes on this. And yeah, so hope you guys, learned awesome stuff. Smiley face, of course, always smiley face. That's good. Let me Oh no. Same time. Alright, bye you guys.